this afternoon, I'm talking with Becka Thompson, who is a candidate for Ward 12 City Council.
Yes, hello.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I mean, you did a pretty good job. My name is Becka Thompson, and I'm running for Ward 12, the Minneapolis City Council.
Great. And so fill me in then a little bit more about your background and why you're running and why you think people in Ward 12 should choose you for their council person.
Well, thank you for the latitude on that. I am a Minneapolis kid. I don't know how else to say it. I think it's kind of lore now. People know I was born and raised there. My son goes to school there. I used to work at Minnehaha Academy as well as South High. That's just my neighborhood that I grew up in. I mean, I could regale people with stories of Lake Hiawatha and the Riverview Theater and Dragon City Cafe, which sadly closed, the libraries, growing up along the river. And I know people don't care necessarily about how I grew up, but all of us have an origin story, and it leaves a mark on us where we grew up, and that's where I grew up, and that's why it's really important to me to see it thriving. I did move to New York City and Los Angeles when I was an actor, and people there, it was kind of a jovial ribbing. They started to call me Minnesota because I just had so many. I don't know if it was like a little a naivete or like a softness or a aw shucks Swedish something about me, but so people, when I lived there, they would call me Minnesota, and I just thought it was silly. But so at any rate, it's a special place to me.
So when did you come back from?
I moved back here in 2009. So okay. I was gone in the bulk of my 20s.
So was there a lot that changed in Ward 12 from when you left?
Honestly, yeah. Well, I couldn't afford it. And I don't want to offend anyone, but my ex-husband and I, when we moved back, I just felt like the Longfellow neighborhood didn't seem the way I remembered it. It was especially like with having I'm sorry, I love Minneapolis. Obviously, I'm running for office and I love it.
Yeah.
And it is a big, small town. It's a big, small town. Yeah. So when you live in places like Manhattan or Los Angeles and you come back here, I just was like, it just felt very weird to me. And it took me a while to adjust to what was going on in Minneapolis. My son was very, very little. He was 18 months. No, not even. Around like a little more than a year. And so I was just kind of like, it was an incredibly challenging and weird time for me as a person. And then because we were broke, and if you know that 2009, like the economy had just completely collapsed. Our son was born. We had nothing. We kind of like fled Los Angeles, like penniless, and settled in North because it was I found a fixer-upper house and fixed it up. So that's where I ended up when we moved back here. But it wasn't for lack of trying to end up back in Longfellow because, like I said, I wanted to be by the lakes again and the river that I grew up in. So
are you? Yeah. Have you moved to Longfellow since then, or?
I'll be plain. I have not moved back yet. I'm going to the stems from. So what happened? What happened was sorry, it's a joke. What happened was without getting too into it, because it is something with my divorce and with my son. He goes to Minnehaha Academy. That actually was written into my divorce decree. So my son has always had to be the commuter because the only place I could afford was North. But I made a promise to him when he was very little. I said, someday before you graduate, we'll live right by school the way, Mom got to grow up. So with my term on the park board coming up and this election year coming up, I was looking at moving, and I was considering running for the park board at large instead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I should point out you are currently a member of the park board.
I am currently a member of the park board. Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
That's a pretty important fact.
Yes, and I am very, very proud of that.
Yeah.
I love the park board. I'm very proud of that. I'm incredibly grateful to my North Side neighbors for electing me to that position. So that's how I ended up. So people got wind I was going to fulfill this promise to my son, and they said, instead of park board at large, will you run for the city council? So I said yes. And it's been a lot of back and forth with my opponent's supporters making a big deal out of that, but plainly it's exactly what she did, but she didn't grow up there. So sorry, it's a fact.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, is there a cutoff when you have to like move there or get an apartment?
30 days within the election. But I plan on at least, I just, as a teacher and for my son's sake, it just seems more natural to try to make the move in the summertime. So
sure.
I've just been saying that to people plainly because, it's caucus time, it's convention, it's that whole thing. And people are giving me a hard time. And then there were a lot of people who were like, you got to move into the ward right away. And I said, look, I'm a homeowner. I'm a mom. I'm a teacher. I work already 2 jobs. My campaign is a 3rd. I don't have the bandwidth as a person to also move. I'll just wait till the summer. So I've been trying to be very honest and straightforward with people about that, versus other people in the city who have been very secretive about where they live. So
okay,
that's what I'm deciding. That's what sets me apart is just candor. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure people appreciate that. I wanted to jump back actually to the park board because I don't
please.
know.
I love the park board. I'm very proud of the work that we've done there. So
what are some of the votes or things that you've done that you would like people to know about?
Well, you know what the thing that I'm the most proud of in the park board, it's more of like a vibe. And I'll just tell you this, at caucus night in Ward 12 over at Sanford Middle School, I had said in almost all the precinct rooms, I said, I'm the chair of the Administration and Finance Committee for the Park Board. Among other things, I'm on the Planning Commission with the city and the Audit Committee with the city. We just had a Planning Commission meeting yesterday. And someone came out because all the rooms had made rules where you can't ask the candidates. They just allowed 2 minutes to do a little stump speech and then they leave. So several people actually followed me out into the hallways to ask me a question, and one of them stopped me and said, and this is the vibe I'm most proud of with the park board, they stopped me and they said, it means a lot to me that you're the chair of the Admin and Finance Committee because the park board is the only government entity that seems to be functioning right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, and I'm proud of the work I've done with my colleagues. I mean, we've shored up a lot of things, whether it was just basic contracts that needed to be fixed. We weathered some storms. We, with union stuff, we figured out trying to find ways to help people afford tree removal, this massive project in North Commons, protecting parkways, getting stormwater management to protect our lakes and creeks to have better water quality. That was a massive undertaking because it's in perpetuity that we got funding for parkways from the city and we got the stormwater management. And we worked on a lot of initiatives that are going to be going in perpetuity. And that to me is what good government is. You don't have little one-offs. You find structural ways to make sure to solve the problems that residents are facing. So for example, our parkways were continually underfunded. We have a joint power agreement with the city where we take care of their trees and they take care of our streets, right? Because we have so few streets and they have so few city trees, right? And we're in the business of trees. We have Arbor Day coming up and they're in the business of roads, right? So we do this joint powers agreement. Well, over time, the city would constantly, just like as a line item, give $750,000 for the upkeep of parkways. Well, it's been that way for like 20 years and not one dime has been added. And that's why the parkways are in ruins. Well, of course, everyone's blaming the park board because the park board owns the parkways. So we rectified that to be able to say, okay, here's the new total. And now we're going to, in perpetuity, add in like inflation adjustments every year to be able to actually make sure our parkways are not crumbling into the abyss. But what residents don't understand is that wasn't just the parkways like trying to not do the park board trying to not do their job. It's that it's a structural agreement that we had to renegotiate with the city. And that to me is good governance. And that's what plainly is missing in City Hall right now, from that there's a lot of one-offs and there's not a lot of like figuring out how to work together to solve the larger problems. Give up some room to maybe get a vote from a colleague on an issue, and then take some room on a flip side and say, hey, this one is really important for my constituents. Can you make sure this happens?
Yeah, some basic collaboration.
Absolutely. So that is the thing I'm the most proud of with the park board, is that we figured out how to figure it out for residents, because we put our egos aside to be able to do that.
One of the things I find very interesting about the park board is the structure, and that you do have these at-large positions and the district positions. I personally would like to see city council adopt something like that. Kansas City does it. But my question for you is, what is the difference between an at-large member versus a district? I mean, does the at-large vote count for more? Or
No. So all 9 of us have the same voting power. But I will tell you, being a district commissioner, I mean, I'm biased because I am, but it's harder because you have direct constituents who are like, fix this. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Versus the at-large represent the whole city. So, I mean, they kind of everything in the city is important to them. It's not that things aren't important to me, but for example, there's a thing coming up tomorrow night at our meeting about the mall park that people
I've
want.
Heard about that.
Yeah, it's very controversial,
a lot of
right?
Interest in that. Yes.
Yep. So here I'm bringing up controversy immediately, right? But it's not my district. It's Commissioner Schaefer's district, and I've built a relationship with her, so I'm much more inclined to say, call her up and say, tell me what's going on with this, right? And then she's going to reciprocate when something like North Commons comes up or the Upper Harbor Terminal, which are in my district. And she's going to say, hey, can you tell me more of what's going on with this, right? So we kind of have more of a neighborhood expertise. And this is not to throw any shade at the at-large, but the at-large are kind of, they could be getting it from everywhere. Like an at-large representative would, in theory, want to be as invested in Upper Harbor as in the mall park, as in, what's happening at the Nokomis Hiawatha trails. And it's not to say that I'm not interested in that. It's just I have a very vested interest in making sure that my district is taken care of.
Yeah, I don't want to get
that's into the weeds of government. But
off. No, I mean,
I think I agree with you. I think the city could be served by having that kind of a structure. 100%.
I mean, 13 council people's a lot.
I took heat online. I don't know. People have told me this. I'm not really on any of those things. But a few years ago when I had mentioned it somewhere and people thought I was being, anti-representation. I don't think having at-large people, I mean, the school board does the same thing too, actually.
Yeah.
The school board has 6 district, it's the exact same outline as the park board, 6 district commissioners and 3 at-large.
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So...
Well, I could talk all day about structural changes, but I did want to kind of come back. So why should Ward 12 voters choose you? Did we cover that?
No, we didn't. I mean, because it's a no-brainer. No. Yeah. I not only do I have a deep and profound love for Ward 12 because it's very personal to me, right? But also like. I have built my life. I'm a math teacher. So I got a degree in mathematics before I went to the Juilliard School. And so then to make ends meet, even when I was in LA, I was tutoring and teaching math, right? And so the basis of math led me on a journey to just understand structures and numbers because people were asking me to solve things. It could be something simple like this classroom isn't working. How do we teach these kids? How do we differentiate? To something much larger of like this entire system isn't working. How do we restructure the school? And so that's how it started with me. I just was curious about like schedules in the first school that I taught in, and I started working with the guy who did that. It sounds dumb, but it's all mathematics, whether it's group theory or graph theory or different strategies. And you start to realize like, oh, systems, like solving systems is a skill that I just have. And I've started to recognize more and more that a lot of people don't. And I will admit that sometimes I lose patience when it seems like so obvious to me because I've made these connections in my head. So at any rate, there are issues in our city, right? Huge one is property taxes. Another huge one is public safety, right? I have been in both with schools and the park board, and then from my vantage point on these committees with the city, to see how we can structurally change this, to see whether it's interdepartmental or interjurisdictional that aren't working well together, or just like, hey, we put our thumb on the scales on this one, and we got to take our thumb off for people to be able to do their job. And then also, financially, I know what works and what doesn't. I don't know if a lot of people know this. I do have an MBA also. I studied finance. So, I mean, like this is my wheelhouse.
So Can I restate that?
Yeah, please.
So
get it down to a 30-second elevator speech for me.
So it's really about you're kind of trying to make the case that you have a good background and record in viewing systems and how to improve them, and that's one of the reasons you think that people should elect you is because you bring that background that will help you fix some of the issues that the city is seeing.
Yes, thank you for restating that.
Okay.
And that's
I wanted to make sure I got it.
Well, that's exactly it. It's like it takes someone who understands how this works. I am sorry, like I do get emotional. I mean, for Pete's sake, I was a professionally trained actor. Like you learn how to access your emotions and manipulate them to be able to do what you need to do as an actor. But that's not the part of my brain that I bring to this thing. It's not that, like it's very non-emotional in a sense. Yeah,
crying and emotions happen in city council.
I've noticed this. I've noticed this. But like, can we recognize that city government? Like, we have gone far too long worrying about how what people will like. I want to say this where it's not like it's so emotional, right? Some things just are, and we're taxing people out of their homes. We're the elderly can barely walk around without fear certain places at night. I went to I'm a trained artist. Like I went out to the Chanhassen Dinner Theater last summer, which was wildly successful, right? And I went out there and talked, and they did busloads of older people because they felt safe in Chanhassen, and they wouldn't do the same thing at the Hennepin Theater Trust right now because they don't, they're not going to go down there, right? So maybe a matinee if it's daylight. But these things affect our city, and ultimately it's the residents who pay the price, literally in their taxes and in their cost of homes. We have driven up the cost of living for renters as well. And these aren't just like one-off platitudes. I know how to dig in there and fix it to get it down for everybody. And if I can't, I'll admit it. But I promise you, like, there's stuff to dig into. That's literally what I do every single day, is trying to find ways either to help children succeed or actually just solve a problem because somebody else couldn't.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear because I think more transparency in particular around what's happening with the budget would be really helpful. I mean, I think a lot of people who've tried to look at the various online tools and stuff find themselves frustrated trying to figure it out. Total side note, I think the Chanhassen Theater just changed leadership, didn't they?
Did it really? I don't know.
I think they might have a new president.
Maybe. Yeah.
I just like
the Chan. It's very, very exciting in the world of actors because you get an equity contract.
I just read that in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I believe Amy Adams got her start there actually because this goes way back to my Hollywood days, but my manager knew everybody in Minnesota. She also represented Josh Hartnett, who's like, Mr. Minnesota here. He still does well. I think he lives in London now. Anyway, South High grad. But I was talking with her once, and I'm pretty sure she told me Amy Adams, because Amy started in Minnesota. I don't know if people know that.
I think that might have been part of the article that I was looking at that showed that it had changed. So, well, I hope they continue to do well.
I wish them well. Absolutely. Let's bring the arts back robustly to let's make Minneapolis the Minneapolis again.
Well, I just interviewed Adam Dunnick, and that's one of their solutions for downtown is arts and culture.
Yep. So. Hey, I've been preaching that for over a year. So, yeah.
So tell me, what are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
I mean, I already kind of touched on them. I would say number 1 is our finances. I mean, if our downtown isn't successful, if you don't have a city council majority that recognizes what's going on with downtown, and we don't right now, we won't be able to fix it. And if we aren't able to fix it, that'll continue to be passed on to residents. And we're just starting to feel the pain points. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, it's like Trump's tariffs, right? It's like we know something's going to come, but we don't know what it's going to be yet. And we're starting to see it. Like, that's what's happening, but it's being completely obfuscated in the city, right? So trying to alleviate the property tax burden on residents by fixing the fiscal issues is number 1. Number 2 is safety. People talk about, I don't know if people know this, a lot of our major crimes are being already shuffled off to the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI. So our officers are actually like required to work overtime as part of their thing. So we have officers, we're that short staffed that they're constantly tired, right? As a teacher, if I was required to come in on Saturdays because schools are short staffed, I would even if you paid me more, that's just exhausting, right? Let's just say you gave me a ton of money to be able to do that, but we just don't have the numbers, right? That's exhausting. So I don't think people realize that. We can't even write the reports. And a lot of times there's oh, my garage got broken into and the cops didn't come. And then we have these electeds who are oh, see, they don't care. No, they actually don't have the time and they don't have the bandwidth to get the report out there, right? So these are things that, again, are being hidden from the plain sight of the public. And so we need to fix it. And to me, we need to have, I know there's alternative sources for safety that's in the news right now too, Northsiders that I know. We need a very simple blind RFP process. RFP is request for proposal for alternate safety programs. And I think that that's totally fine, but we need to vet that and have it be clear. As we say in the world of education, you want it to be clear and repeatable, right? So if you're creating a lesson that works, you can repeat it, right? That's the idea of the RFP. That's another skill that I bring. It's just can you write a sub-plan where anybody can make sure that your kids are taken care of while you're gone, right? That's kind of the idea. You're building something. And then the last one, is completely specific to Ward 12, is just really help out the businesses that were destroyed. I know this also enters into Ward 9, but we're one city, for Pete's sake, on Lake Street, on Chicago, on Minnehaha, Hiawatha, all those places. There's a problem with the Minneapolis 2040 plan that a lot of those businesses were grandfathered in to be able to just rebuild what they had and not have the requirements of 2040. I won't get into the details of our comprehensive plan, but suffice to say, they missed their window because insurance payouts didn't happen after they were literally burned to the ground, right? I think of Minnehaha Liquor as a perfect example. And that didn't happen until after their grandfather window was gone. And so if you were to say something like Minnehaha Liquor, right now, based on the comp plan, if they want to rebuild their liquor store, they have to have a 5-story apartment building on top of it. So you're asking people who just owned a small business to now suddenly become landlords, and they don't want to do that, so they're just not building anything at all. So that's something that a council member could easily you can change the comp plan, or you can just do a variance for that site, right? But you can help them. You can reach out and you say, hey, what do you want to do with your land? It's your land. It's it's your land. You own it. Do you want to rebuild? Do you want how can I help facilitate what you want to do? And I think after 5 years, it's okay to reach out and ask people. And maybe some people are done and they're tired and they don't want it anymore. But I'm gonna wager that a ton of businesses on Lake Street would love the help and the empty lots that are still there.
Yeah. Wow, you brought up a lot of interesting points there. I want to circle back.
Please.
So one was the finances and kind of working on property taxes, helping. And this is top of mind for me, but, how do we address the issues of vacancies and things downtown? I mean, I think everyone wants to see the property taxes go down. Mm-hmm. I think the hard part is figuring out that math. So
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
What is some of the ideas that you think you
Well,
would work?
Honestly, I would love to start having conversations with CEOs or top level people of why they left. Mm-hmm. I have it on pretty good authority from the downtown council that people have intimated to me, because I asked them point blank, if we air quotes fixed certain issues, would businesses come back? And I was told that there is a real desire by a lot of these businesses to return to downtown, but they don't want to do it under the conditions that are currently created. It's just expensive, and then what's the point of trying to force your employees to go downtown to pay all this extra money for parking and then get mugged as you try to walk to lunch, right? Mm-hmm. That's just a reality, right? So I've said this to people before, and I know sometimes I get pushback, but I'm not trying to be a jerk, but this is a free country. You don't hold people hostage and you don't hold businesses hostage. So if they're going to move to an Eden Prairie business park, they're going to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but I think like downtown, and I don't think this will ever go away. There's a little like a swagger, right? You get to hear the Twins game. There's a day game tomorrow, right? You get to, walk down by the river during the day. People want to do that, but you just have to make it a little nicer for them to be able to have that happen. So I think that would be number one, is see if you can convince some of our big Fortune 500 companies to come back. And then, and this is really from the mayor's playbook, but I agree with it. COVID changed a lot of stuff. So convert the buildings to mixed use residential that you can convert, and then hopefully get some of those businesses to switch over to the downtown towers that are really challenging to convert. And that is a conversation that we're having at the Planning Commission right now. It was something that was talked about. I can't remember if it was right before Christmas or right afterwards, but like they're concerned, and justifiably so.
So
I know I have a lot of information.
That was all very important, but I think there was another item to your resume maybe that you haven't mentioned. Like, so you're on the Planning Commission? Is that right?
The City Planning Commission. And
that's an important detail.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I think I glossed over that maybe pretty quickly. Yes, I'm on the City Planning Commission. How do you get on that? Is it automatically? I know they pick park board people and this and that, but do fellow park board people have to nominate you? Yes, yeah. So of the park board, a lot of things are assigned once you're elected by the president. So we as a board elect our president and vice president, and then the president chooses appointments for most things. The Board of Estimate and Taxation and the Planning Commission, however, are voted on. And so the BET is filled by our president, Kathy Abeni, and I was voted to serve a 2-year term on the Planning Commission by my colleagues. So,
and when does that term end?
There are two-year terms of the 4-year term for a park board commissioner. So the first half of our tenure together, my colleague Becky Alper sat on the commission, and then I've been on for the last year and a quarter. I mean, we're in April now, right?
I was just trying to figure out, like, let's say if you got elected to city council,
I could still be on the Planning Commission, but
is that possible or not?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
you wouldn't be on the park board anymore.
So on the Planning Commission is a park board member, a school board member, a city council member, a Hennepin County commissioner, and 5 or 6 appointees. The thing is, the appointees are almost entirely the mayor, and then there are 1 or 2 city council appointees. So it's pretty stacked for the city, but the other organizations get to have a voice on there, and I'm always there to advocate for green space, which I had to yesterday. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one up there who's doing it, but
So what green space were you advocating for?
Well, there were some single family home lots that somebody want to build a 7-story tower on it on Lake Street, and we had to rezone to be able to do that. And I said, have you spoken with the families? Like, they're renters. I get it that the underlying property owner can do this, but the comprehensive plan required certain allocations to buffer zones to the sidewalk and green and this and that. And we eliminated that by allowing the lots to be subsumed into one mega lot.
So things like that come before the Planning Commission,
correct?
Like first.
Yep.
And then you would write a recommendation, I guess.
Yeah.
And then that goes to the city council.
Yeah. You want to hear the wag the dog kind of stuff that goes on with this?
Sure. Yeah.
The Planning Commission is mostly citizen appointees, and so what I've discovered with my colleague / opponent in Ward 12 is that on the Planning Commission, we'll get I'm pretty much mostly the voice of objection. Some of the other electeds don't make it to the meetings, and it ends up being most of the resident appointees, who are lovely people. I can't not say, but so at for example, there's something around cannabis that it was said to me, oh, don't worry, we're going to fix this at the city council level when it comes to the city council level. Because I was getting upset that we weren't doing our due diligence. And it actually was it wasn't about cannabis. It was about a new program with the state for what are being called recuperative care facilities, but they're essentially homeless shelters sprinkled all over the city. And the first one was coming before us, and I was like, if we have a quasi-judicial duty to see if we made this happen, right, then we need to really vet this. And I don't know that we're giving a proper consideration to this. I'm not saying you can see the video if you want to look up. I forget the date it was on the Planning Commission. I kind of grilled people. The planners interjected and said that that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. And I was like, dude, I'm an elected. This is what I do. Uh-huh. And then my opponent / colleague on the Planning Commission said, oh, well, we can work this out when it gets to the city council. Well, everybody passed it minus me and like one other person. But then when it got to the city council, guess what the logic was of why they should pass it there? Well, it already passed the citizen appointees in the citizen group of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission already signed off on this. So it was this circular language and circular logic with which to obfuscate the real power player in the middle of that, swaying the citizen appointees to do what was wanted by the city council.
Who was the power player? Who was so...
My opponent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she wanted...
she won, bully for her, but the thing is it was completely based on this pretext of a complete wag the dog. Like, don't worry. At the council, we're going to figure this out. She said that from the dais. I was frustrated. And then it was like, oh no. And then when it got to the other thing, it was like, hey guys, I don't think we should go against our community engagement planning commission. I think we should just, and of course they all wanted to vote it through. Let's be plain, because this particular city council wants that. And this is a conversation that doesn't have to be like to homeless or not to homeless. That is the question. Like, that's not what it is. But to say that like our city is really challenged right now. We have drug corners, right? And we exacerbate them by putting a recuperative care facility right in front of them. And then residents whose home values are plummeting because they live next to a drug corner, right? Like, yeah. I mean, we're very close to a Starbucks that I used to go to all the time, but it closed, right? So it's like, well, and that's Starbucks. They can financially handle a lot more hits than a neighborhood business could,
I've written about the recuperative care centers a couple of times, and I feel talking to you, I need to go back and see where they're at. But I mean, my understanding with that is that basically the city council approved them to be there, like from a zoning perspective, but kind of wiped their hands of them and said, this is really something the state has to deal with, because the state is the one who came up with the license that allows these recuperative care centers to exist.
And I will say off the record.
Well, no, we're definitely on the record.
No, you and I are on the record, but I will off the record with the person that I spoke with off the record after the meeting was over. Because I had asked it in the meeting and nobody wanted to say anything. So then I asked it after the meeting. I said basically like, hey, between you and me, is the state leaning on us? Is the state leaning on the city? And the very pragmatic person kind of paused and they said there's definitely tensions that they want us to do this. And I thought, that is not partnership. That's just like, we're already struggling. And then because these recuperative care facilities, correct, they're the state level. It's a state mandate. It's a state funded thing. So I asked the applicant of this very first one, I said, why did you choose this location?
And this is the one at Lake, and I think...
this particular one is on Nicollet. I was looking for it as I was driving over here. Very controversial. Maybe it was more by Stevens Square, but we're close, right? So I said, I was spitballing, right? I said, why did you choose this location and not say Minnetonka, right? In a vacant lot in Brooklyn Center. I don't know. Why did you pick this? And I was told I wasn't allowed to ask that question. And I was like, what? That is, so these are the things that like, I sometimes feel like I'm going to lose my mind. But so this goes back to solving systems, right? I've seen what things are. I see where things are. And my love is for my hometown. I don't have a set of national ideologies that someone's telling me I have to do or I won't get a donation. I will just say I was relooking at my campaign finance stuff because I guess something didn't get filed properly. I'm just going to be plain. I try to be very honest. So I have to redo something. And every single one of my donors is from Minnesota, and I'm pretty positive every single one of them is from Minneapolis. So, like, I'm proud of that. Every single person that actually cares about this city recognizes that I'm the better choice.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't have these national, like, oh, we're going to give your campaign $10,000, but, you know, we're from Maryland or something. I don't, you know what I mean? Or God forbid across the world. Like, these are residents that are saying, help us. And I'm saying, I'm going to come and help you. And so some of it is like under the underbelly of stuff. So yeah, there's a layer with the state to say, hey, I appreciate you guys trying to take on homelessness. I do appreciate that part. But like your solution is making it's more burdensome on the city than it was supposed to be. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to necessarily go into that rabbit hole, but it's more than just trying to deal with homelessness.
No, I know.
I mean, that's
it's addiction and drugs. Let's just be plain.
There's a whole Medicaid component of those things that.
I probably shouldn't say my father is retired and my sister still practices medicine, so I'm very well aware of those.
So I mean, it's
streams.
They're medical facilities. It's just the clientele.
Yep.
Are homeless people.
They claim to be medical facilities, but you and I could run them.
Yes.
That was this woman who was the applicant. I said, do you have any background in this?
Yeah.
And again, she was very sheepish. And I thought, my goodness, who tipped this woman off to try to use this as I felt for her, right? She was just a woman trying to find a way to start a business. I felt for her, but like, you know, it's like Transformers. It's more than meets the eye. Okay, something else is going on there. And that's the thing that I'm good at doing. I'm good at rooting it out and figuring it out and then changing it. So.
That is good to hear. And one of the things that maybe you can figure out, and your second priority was safety, and you talked about needing more people.
Yeah.
So how do we go about attracting recruits, right? I mean, they've gotten some additional recruits. The mayor talks about the improvement in applications. Do you feel like more needs to be done, or are we on the right path?
That's a great question too. On the park board, we've had some open positions, and I've talked to our police chief, who's awesome. And I've said, even point blank at one point, I said, do you want more funding for more officers? He said, we're struggling to find quality candidates for the positions we have open. So right now, let's just leave what we have. And that's sad to hear and sad to know. I really think that the city, and I'm pretty sure the mayor's put a moratorium on this, but I think at the city, we need to consider lateral recruits, which are, for people who don't know, are people who are already officers in a different jurisdiction, and then we hire them across, who they already have experience. I know the logic is we want to train our own people, and we want to know the bad apples and blah, 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 but there are a lot of good people. I was told if we look into like pension components for incentivizing lateral recruits or lateral officers or lateral hires, I guess is the right word, that could help alleviate some of that. I think we need to look into it. I think you can change culture without completely having to deal with rookies, because let's be plain, what happened almost 5 years ago now, we had a couple of rookie officers there, right, on the scene. And that's part of the problem. That was part of what exploded in our face, right?
Yeah.
These people didn't know what they were doing. And I don't say that dismissively or with, like, it's like having a school full of 2-year teachers. I watch them burn out, right? I've been in those schools too, where I'm like the old, savvy one. And I'm like, oh, you're going to get eaten alive by these kids.
People want to kind of dismiss experience, but it can be helpful.
Yeah. Like I tell people, it's a Picasso quote. You're paying for the years, not the minutes. Like, yeah.
Right. Okay, so your last one here was about helping small businesses, particularly over there, and you mentioned the 2040 plan and variances and stuff. A lot of people want to help small businesses. They talk about it. What as can the city council, do you think, do that they're not doing to help small businesses?
Well, I liken it to a classroom. And I've already gotten into the weeds on a lot of different city issues. But in a classroom, you talk about creating a learning environment, right? And you want to create conditions where every child has a chance to succeed, right? And schools are extremely challenged right now. The number one thing that you could say is, well, you want, a level of safety. That is like basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And from that, hopefully when your classroom is calm and kids feel like they can explore, that you create the conditions where they can learn, right? And then you present the material to them. So within the city, we can create the conditions for small businesses to thrive. Right now, we're doing a series of one-offs. We have these like open storefronts grants, which is a great idea when your city is already financially fluid. We're not. So again, it's the kind of lipstick on a pig. So you go in and you look at some of these buildings plainly, and it's a lot of legwork. I just plan on going out there and talking with every single business that's there, finding every underlying landholder of something that burned down or still isn't rebuilt, and just say, ask them, what is stopping you? What can I do to help facilitate that, right? Because yes, it's expensive, but I promise you it's way less expensive than the amount of money that we're letting flow out of into 1,000 different corners that go nowhere. I've seen it. I've gone through the budgets. There are some budgets that have a black hole, right? Or a black box. And you go, ooh, that was $5 million or $50 million. Where did that go? That could help small businesses, Yeah. Entrepreneurs are really great at finding ways to cut corners and be nimble and still try to turn a profit. So empower the citizens. Like, I think we have so much this idea of like council members are supposed to be the thing, or the mayor is going to fix everything. Empower the residents to be the people, right? But you can empower them through government. Yes, the same way that you empower kids through the governmental structure of a school. So like, again, this is my background. It's like I can't get the kid an A in math, but I can create the conditions and I can sure teach them everything I know and then set them free to take the test. And every student of mine that has ever succeeded, that was actually why I quit acting, to be plain, is because I realized the teacher high was as high or greater than the actor's high. That like watching your students succeed is like, I don't even know how to explain it, right? I've had so many students that have gone on to do amazing things, including be NBA players and Olympians, and and then finance managers and other teachers. And whenever you see someone succeed, you think, man, I'm grateful that I had a small part in that. So that's part of it. It's just like asking them, what do you need? And then going in and figuring out the structure to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that as much effort is put into asking them what they need now as could be.
Yeah, there's a lot of hubris of I know best. Well, you know what? I too was an arrogant PO when I was in my early 20s.
Well, so
I'm not judging. I'm just saying maybe leadership isn't the best thing for you right now.
Let's talk about the current council a little bit. Are there any specific policies that they have passed that you do support, or possibly that you would vote differently on?
Oh my gosh. I really struggle to think of anything that I would support. I'm being honest.
So
I feel like there may have been one in the last year, but I can't come up with it off the top of my head.
So a few of the big ones that have come up, obviously, are the Uber Lyft.
I would never have supported that. No labor standards board. No.
The budget.
The budget was crazy, and in fact, I was debating on whether or not to announce I was going to run for the city council. And after that budget, I just I couldn't handle it, and I just went on TikTok and was like, by the way, I'm running for the city council.
Okay.
And then I shared it with some friends, and I was like, just spread the word.
So the budget was one of the motivators for you.
Oh yes. Yes. Because it was the world of 1,000 earmarks that go nowhere and create they're trying to create whole new departments. Chavez in particular would say, well, we're going to get, they all voted for him. But it was the author, right? I think Chowdhury was the co-author in Chugtai. And if you guys are ever listening to this, hi. And it was like, well, $500,000 for something, right? And it's like, oh, well, it's a one-time fund because it's what they were able to like pull out of somewhere, which by the way is like meant to bolster the general fund that they like just stripped away to have in off years. I mean, it's like the fiscal irresponsibility is beyond my comprehension. And this earmark is intended to, in future years, become in perpetuity. Same like as that wag the dog example I was saying with the planning commission, then into the city council, right? They're going to use that as pretext to say, well, we have this now, we need to fund it, right? So that's number one. And then also like they overstepped and they started telling things that like they're trying to dictate to parks what we're supposed to do on our land. It's like, no.
What's the example there?
Fruit vendors and
yeah,
bypassing and bypassing our health, like the Department of Health. Like it's insane to me. And I cannot live in a world of insanity any longer, and I won't do it. So I will fight to the end. I've already had people. I had pneumonia last week. I was in the ER. I have already had people because I'm working essentially 3 jobs, right? And I'm a single mom. Park board, teaching, and this campaign. And people are like, Becka, you already lived in, you can just leave. Like, why are you like literally putting your health on the line? Because I love my hometown and I know I can fix it and I cannot handle it anymore.
So for people who aren't aware, what they just passed, and I think
please say it. It's like, I think there was
it went through the, I know it went through the committee. Okay, I don't know if it's gone through the full.
Someone sent me a text and I hadn't had a chance to read it right before I came here, so that's why it was top of mind.
But I mean, and I watched some of the testimony so basically they want to create a streamlined, simpler permitting process so that immigrants can sell fruit and other things on the street. And it's well-intentioned, I guess, because some of these people can't meet the bar for like a regular street cart vendor permit. But to your point, like nobody's making sure the fruit is refrigerated or where it came from or
and
anything.
More than that, talk about the law of unintended consequences. If you, first of all, the number one places where these fruit vendors have gone are Minneapolis parks. Mm-hmm. Number one is Minnehaha Falls. They are all over Lake Nokomis. Do people not recognize who the president of the United States is right now and what he has declared? If you are just basically putting on public notice where to find people who are undocumented, you think it won't just happen. I mean, like, you're putting these people at risk. This is what bothers me more than anything else, is that either it's blind hubris, and now we're getting Becka Thompson unfiltered. Either it's totally blind hubris of I know better than everybody, which is coming from our council, or they're genuinely ignorant of what could happen, right? That's the thing about good quality decision making, is you try to see as many ends as you can before you vote yes or no.
Yeah.
And this is like, these are easy. Like, I mean, I take heat of like, oh, anti this, anti that. I am genuinely trying to support people. I fought for them until I lost my job at South High, to undocumented students and their families. That never makes the progressive, talking piece. It's because you are making them more vulnerable with false promises of safety rather than actually trying to find ways to help. Instead of this nonsensical fruit vendor thing, how about you actually support them getting into the pathways to learn what they have to do? Mm-hmm. I don't think you need citizenship to be able to understand how to properly handle fruit and pass an inspection. Like, this is just beyond ridiculous to me. But that's what they spend their time on rather than, figuring out George Floyd Square. So, yeah. Becka unfiltered. Should I roll it back in?
No, I mean, it's to your point, it's an interesting issue for them to take up right now when there's so much going on, so many other and when I watched the committee hearing, I mean, it was they don't always have multiple perspectives, right? Like
No.
they had, I think, 3 or 4 different people who, wanted these special licenses, but there was no one who was going to come in and say, look, there's some risk here with X, Y, and Z. Like you never kind of hear that side of things.
Yeah. And
so.
if I may wax poetic, I had students whose families were undocumented. I've fought for them. I raised money for some families. A young mother who escaped not only a bad relationship situation, but then she escaped a challenging country. And I'm incredibly sensitive to that. I myself left a not quality marriage. This woman was unable to work because she's not documented, right? My heart breaks for her. I did as much as I could. I tried to help her just as a person, as the teacher of her child, right? And I, of course, would keep anonymity. That's just one example of many that I tried to help. And you look at systemic change and systems. I think to myself, how can I actually help her, right? I can make it easier for her to either start a business or get a job in some capacity within the city's framework. Does that mean that ICE won't still be under the Trump administration? I don't know. But what I would do if I were in the city council right now is I would go to plainly the mayor and other department heads and the think tank of the top brass of the city and say, help me help her, and use this as an example. What can we do? And then, as you talked about expertise, staffers, that's their job. The same way I'm an expert in a lot of ways with math and teaching, that's their job. And as you start that conversation, it's incredible. I've gone to the park board sometimes, staffers, and said, here's what I think that we need to do. You tell me, how do we get this accomplished, right? Mm-hmm. And give them a couple months and they come up with something amazing that you can really get behind, or that is at least a little bit vetted, that you start to ask around. And then after 8 months or a year, you come up with an actual program that could actually help this mom that I'm mentioning, who's a very real person, and her children are incredible, and she's an incredible human being. And I am powerless to do anything apart from periodically raise cash for her and to try to help her pay rent, right? And that feels very disempowering, and I'm about figuring out the systems that empower others. So this fruit vendor thing, I get it, as you said, it's well-intentioned, but my gosh, you guys have so many more levers of power if you learned how to work together. But God forbid you ask the mayor for help on anything. I mean, that's their posture right now, and we're seeing the evidence of that. So I don't have time for that kind of, it compromises people who need help, who need real help, not something that'll make the Star Tribune's front page. Honestly, can you tell I get annoyed?
Well, so that sort of leads into what my next question is because I agree with you that there seems to be a huge lack of trust between the mayor and the city council. So the question here is, do you feel like Fry deserves a third term? And if he does win it, what common ground do you feel you could work with him on?
I mean, here's the thing about the mayor. As a person, I think he has real integrity, and that's from a personal interaction that he and I had after the city was burning. And I'll just leave that for what it was. And it really kind of made me see him in a different light, because I was one of the people that was really TO'd, right? My hometown's burning, right? My neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think that the mayor deserves a chance to have at least one term where the city council is also kind of aligned with him. Right. He's had 2 terms of 2 different groups of people who fought every single thing that he did. And in the first term, it ended up in the city burning. And then the second term, it's been unable to recover. We had 2 years between 21 and 23 where there was a razor's thin 7-6 moderate council to be able to just, get a few things through with public safety. But then in 2023, the activists all came back. They flipped the 2 seats that were vacant, which, whatever it had happened. And then it's been back to gridlock again. So I think that you'd like to see someone at least have a chance to succeed. And I think that he has proven himself to be able to stand in the face of extremely challenging situations and not back down. And I have a lot of admiration for being able to do that. So that's the long way to say yes. I think he deserves it.
So what are some of the, I mean, when you talk about kind of the gridlock that's happened, what are some of the issues out there that you would be excited to work with him on to move the city forward?
Public safety.
Yeah.
And just the budget. And alleviate, getting into the, I think there's a lot of stuff that could happen if we just have more of a functioning city right now. I mean, for the last 2 years, we've basically been in a holding pattern of nothing, which nothing was not the direction we needed to go, of nowhere.
So I want to end on a lighter note.
Sure.
So what during the summer, when your school year ends there, do you have any hobbies or summer activities that you do that kind of give Ward 12 voters a better idea of who you are?
Well, I have oftentimes, I swim a lot. I've done triathlons and marathons, but I was talking about this with my brother. I just think this is super funny. I like to swim. I paddleboard. I do all the lake things, right? Love going to Lake Nokomis, which technically I believe is in Ward 11 now, but just love going there. But here's a funny, because I was just talking to my brother yesterday at the Twins game. My sister-in-law is hilarious. They both live by Powderhorn. Obviously, they're married. They live by Powderhorn, and my sister-in-law, they got a big floating couch at Costco, and they named it Donna. So my brother is like, "We really got to get you out onto Donna this summer."
Okay.
I'm sorry. My sister-in-law makes me laugh so hard. She's great. On a gigantic floating couch. Apparently on Lake Nokomis. So yeah. Apparently their cocktails are served if you can swim out to the gigantic floating couch.
Is there a floating cooler, I guess?
I think there is a floating cooler. We'll have to ask my brother about that, but I mean, that intimates what I do a lot is hang out with family. Like my brother still lives here. My sister lives in Rochester. My parents live here still. So a lot of people. Yeah. My son, of course. So.
Well, great.
Yeah,
and then, so are there any topics that we didn't cover today that you'd like to discuss? And you want to make sure that you tell people what your website is and all that?
Oh, yeah. My website, that is actually, and I won't get into this, but I am being impersonated online. There's a big deep fake, and the people have followed me, whomever's doing it, to every campaign event that I've had. So to be clear, my website is vote then the number 4 Becka, Becka, vote the number 4 Becka.com. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that, but there's a whole, I mean, it's completely,
sure.
It's
just
broken.
Bring up an intriguing point. We'll leave
there,
it.
There are, it breaks several campaign laws, and the people, I've had some people try to help me figure out who's behind it, and it's they are anonymous on purpose.
Well, I'm sorry that's happening.
Yeah.
I like to think that the, decisions of who to vote for get made on, the positions and ideas and background that a person brings. But I know that's not always the case. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been slandered from the moment I announced my campaign. Legitimately slandered on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, by DFL higher ups. Mm-hmm. Who are, I would call them part of the activist class, but I'm sure if they hear this clip, they'll be playing it on repeat and skewering me, but it's the truth. And I have chosen on advice of people not to take time to address their lies because there's just there are bigger things to do. And also from my background in LA and Hollywood, I plainly, a lot of my old friends and old classmates are wildly successful Hollywood actors. And, I watched they might have 100 fans, but they'll have somebody that'll just try to trash on them and they don't know them. And I'll see this on social media and I'll be like, gosh, they got it all wrong about so-and-so, right? But I just think, maybe that just goes with the territory. And hey, if you're going to try to slander me, then that means I'm saying something true and honest and worth doing. So just keep going. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I know
Thank
you
you.
got the 3
That's
jobs.
fun.
You're busy.
Yeah,
So
I am.
I'm very appreciative that you came in here today.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right.